On the broadcast tonight, President Park Geun-hye holds a one-on-one with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague. In focus, North Korea's nuclear program. More rocky road ahead in Korea-Japan relations. Just ahead of a U.S.-arranged summit between Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo, a high-ranking Japanese official says a 1993 apology to victims of sexual slavery could be revised at any time. And Korea launches its first-ever trading platform for gold in efforts to bring the underground economy into the open and squeeze taxes out of the opaque market. Early edition begins now.
당신의 유럽은 어디였나요?
Excellence in flight. Korean Air.
It is 5 a.m. in Washington, 10 in The Hague, and 6 on a Monday evening here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Chen. Thank you for joining us. As expected, our starting point today is the Security Summit, the Nuclear Security Summit 2014, that is.
Now, on this Monday, President Park Geun-hye held summit talks with Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte on the sidelines of this year's Nuclear Security Summit set to open later on Monday. The two leaders exchanged hopes of further expanding economic cooperation between their countries. Now, this is the first time a Korean president has made an official visit to the Netherlands. Now, in about an hour or so, the Korean president will attend a luncheon hosted by Dutch King Willem-Alexander. Xi and Chinese President Xi Jinping are the only two state leaders invited for lunch by the king. At 11 p.m. Monday Korea time, President Park Geun-hye will give an opening speech at the Nuclear Security Summit 2014 in The Hague alongside the Dutch Prime Minister and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and Arirang TV will bring you a live coverage of that. Meanwhile, no nuclear weapons for North Korea. That was the reaffirmation made by the leaders of South Korea and China on Sunday as they met in The Hague ahead of this week's Nuclear Security Summit. Arirang News Presidential Office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun is traveling with the president, and she filed this report from The Hague.
President Park Geun-hye discussed better cooperation on curbing North Korea's nuclear program with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Sunday. The two leaders met for the fourth time ahead of this year's Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague. President Park stressed Pyongyang cannot achieve economic development while continuing with its nuclear weapons program. To that end, President Xi said China opposes North Korea as a nuclear weapons state and that Beijing is, in its own way, persuading its ally to fulfill its previous international denuclearization pledges. This comes after President Park urged North Korea's traditional allies, China and Russia, in an interview with a Dutch broadcaster to push Pyongyang harder to give up its nuclear arms. The Chinese leader then endorsed President Park's trust-building initiatives on the Korean peninsula and policies for a peaceful reunification. President Park said a unified Korean peninsula would be nuclear-free, symbolic of peace, generating a new growth engine in Northeast Asia. On the trade front, the Korean president said the two sides should try to finalize negotiations for a Korea-China FTA within a year, to which her Chinese counterpart agreed. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News, The Hague.
Now, ahead of a trilateral summit among Korea, the U.S. and Japan scheduled for Tuesday, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said it's important to face history and pass it on to the next generation. But as our foreign affairs correspondent Hwang Sang-hee reports, his sincerity is once again in question after a high-level Japanese official called for a new statement on the comfort women issue.
Visiting the Anne Frank House Museum in Amsterdam on Sunday, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe stressed the importance of preserving history for the next generation.
We would like to face the historical facts in a humble manner, but also we'd like to pass on the lessons and the facts of history to the next generation.
The Anne Frank House is where the German-born Jewish girl kept a diary of her life in hiding before she died in a Nazi concentration camp. Abe's visit to one of the best-known memorials to the victims of the Holocaust is being seen as a diplomatic move ahead of his first official meeting with his South Korean counterpart. President Park Geun-hye has been refusing to meet Abe until just days ago when he vowed to uphold Japan's landmark apology issued in 1993 to the victims of its wartime sexual enslavement during the Second World War. South Korea, Japan, and the United States will meet for a trilateral summit on the sidelines of the Nuclear Security Summit, which Tokyo hopes will serve as an occasion to thaw relations with Seoul.
Since it will be my first official meeting with President Park, I hope it will be our first step towards building a future-oriented bilateral relations.
But a comment made by Abe's special advisor, Koichi Hagiuda, on Sunday is once again raising eyebrows about Japan's sincerity. Referring to a recent row between Japan and Korea over a reported plan to revise the 1993 apology, Hagiuda stressed Abe did not deny the possibility of issuing a new statement over the matter. He said Tokyo should consider issuing a new political statement on the so-called comfort women issue if fresh findings emerge while the government verifies how the apology was prepared. South Korea's foreign ministry said it was inappropriate for a high-level Japanese official to deny the recent pledges made by Abe and urged Tokyo to reaffirm its stance. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, more evidence that the Japanese military forced Korean women into sexual slavery during World War II. A rare set of documents from China was made public on this Monday. Son Jeong reports.
China's Jilin Provincial Archives has released a letter written by a Japanese citizen who lived in China in 1941. It says that some 20 Korean women were forced at the time to serve at a comfort station in the Japanese army compound stationed in northern China. A separate Japanese document written by the Japanese military police in Nanjing described 36 Korean women at a military brothel during World War II as special comfort women, which indicates that they were coerced into sexual servitude. These and 23 other documents were released by the Chinese Archives Administration through Korean media on Monday. Local experts say the set of rare evidence is more proof that Japan forcefully mobilized Korean females as comfort women under the 1938 National Mobilization Law. The Korean government has pressed Japan for decades to make a formal apology and provide compensation to the wartime victims, but Japan has refused. Historians say up to 200,000 women from Korea, China, and other Asian nations were coerced into sexual servitude at Japanese brothels during the war. Son Jang-in, Arirang News.
Now, the summit between President Park Geun-hye and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Sunday was the first on the Korean leaders' itinerary in The Hague.
And for a closer look into what they discussed and what the summit signifies as President Park heads into a trilateral summit with the leaders of Japan and the U.S., we're now joined live in the studio by Dr. Jeong, Senior Research Fellow at the Center for International Area Studies at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Jeong.
Glad to be here.
Now, first of all, let's talk about the timing of this Korea-China summit. It was President Park's first scheduled event as soon as arriving in The Hague for the Nuclear Security Summit. Now, and it comes ahead of the Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo trilateral summit. Now, what is the significance of this summit, and more importantly, what about the timing of it, like coming before the trilateral summit?
Well, the Korea-China summit can be viewed with 3 points. The first is that the Korea-China summit showed off the close relationship between the two countries and between the two leaders. And the second is that by allocating the Korea-China summit before the trilateral summit, Korea could deliver its concerns about the China's possible anxiety that can be caused by the trilateral meeting of Korea, the United States, and Japan. China might feel threatened to be alienated and surrounded in the region by the three countries. So by having a meeting with President Xi Jinping, President Park could deliver its concerns and persuade Chinese cooperation. And the third is that Korea could send a signal to other countries. Well, for Korea to cope with the pending issues in Northeast Asia, cooperation with China is extremely needed. And by having Korea-China summit, Korea could show that, well, the two countries will cooperate in various ways. But at the same time, Korea could show that it will balance among competing big powers, not leaning upon a certain side. And this goes with Korea's foreign policy to be a mediator and arbiter of the region. And I hope that President Park could reap a great result from this trip.
Well, we do hope so too. Now let's talk about North Korea, nuclear and proud. We believe that the focus of the summit on Sunday was North Korea. In fact, can we actually go into the details of what was discussed on this subject?
Well, when it comes to North Korean issues, they can be summarized into three. The first is North Korean nuclear weapons, and the second is the political stability of North Korea, and the third is China's cooperation in the unification process. Among them, the most important topic is North Korean nuclear issues, and in my opinion, well, regarding the North Korean nuclear weapons, I'm sure that China shared the same opinion with Korea, and well, China have shown, well, consistent attitude, policy attitude, well, that it opposed to North Korea's having nuclear weapons.
Now, Seoul and Beijing obviously used the opportunity to reaffirm the two countries' commitment to North Korea's denuclearization. Now, in your view, do you think the summit on Sunday will have any impact on the resumption of six-party talks?
To talk about that, we should mention China's chief delegate of six-party talks would always visit to North Korea that took place last week. Well, would always visit to North Korea. It was expected that, well, during his visit, China would try to North Korea for paving the way for other countries to, well, hold the six-party talks again by persuading North Korea. So in a sense, well, it can be easily expected that if, well, with the assumption that the meetings on Hague would be successful, well, the six-party talks can be resumed within the near future.
Well, reunification of the two Koreas was something that was mentioned by President Xi Jinping. Well, hope springs eternal from Korean side, of course. Can we possibly read into it a little bit deeper?
Well, what you can find nowadays is that the experts and scholars of Chinese experts and scholars on Korean issues frequently expressed that China will not intervene North Korea in cases of sudden changes. And President Xi Jinping also expressed, well, his support to peaceful unification on the Korean Peninsula. So in a sense, by expressing officially that it will not opposed to Korea's peaceful unification, China went one step forward regarding the unification of the Korean Peninsula.
And the two leaders reportedly also discussed Korea's willingness to join the TPP Trans-Pacific Partnership, as well as a possible bilateral free trade pact between the two countries. The 10th round of negotiations just concluded last week without much progress. Now, can we expect anything substantial from the summit?
Well, in my own opinion, well, Korea's joining TPP is closely related with the Korea-China FTA. Well, in a sense, Korea intentionally adjusts its timing of joining TPP, well, as it can cause worries from China. But both the United States and China are the important trading partners of Korea, so it is impossible for Korea to select between them, just one of them, well, with neglecting the other. So in this vein, well, the Korean government decided to join TPP. Well, it intentionally delays its joining TPP. So it is reported that the two leaders agreed on signing Korea-China FTA within this year. So, well, I might say there is a possibility that joining TPP and concluding Korea-China FTA would be completed, well, almost at the same time.
Well, as always, Dr. Jeong, thank you for coming in and shining some light on many topics that we want to cover today. We look forward to having you back here sometime soon.
Thank you for having me.
Not facing.
We apologize.
We're all destroyed.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gon-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Proposal for talks on holding regular reunions for families separated by the Korean War. Their reason.
We move on to the topic of national defense. If all goes according to plan, Korea will ink a deal to purchase 40 F-35A fighter jets from Washington later this year. They'll be going through the so-called foreign military sales process, which could save the government hundreds of millions of dollars. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Kim Hyun-bin has more.
Korea has announced plans to buy 40 F-35A fifth-generation fighter jets from Lockheed Martin later this year. The Defense Acquisition Program Administration said Monday that will go through the U.S. government's foreign military sales process and complete negotiations with Washington over prices and conditions in the third quarter. The FMS process gives a foreign country the ability to pay the amount specified set by the U.S. government at the time of delivery, not when the contract is signed. Korea's total budget for the fighter jet project is approximately 7.4 trillion won, or roughly $6.8 billion US dollars. A recent assessment by Lockheed Martin suggested that the price for one F-35A could drop to $80 million by 2019, when production is in full swing. It said that could eventually mean lower prices for international buyers, including Korea. The DAPA said it will monitor the development of the F-35, which has not been tested on the battlefield yet, and whether it fits with all of Korea's military requirements. With an eye on North Korea, the DAPA also approved a plan to purchase an unspecified number of RQ-4 Global Hawk unmanned aerial surveillance vehicles through FMS. The high-altitude, long-endurance unmanned aerial vehicle can operate in all weather conditions and distinguish an object as small as 0.3 meters in size, while carrying 1,400 kilograms of internal payload. Experts say the state-of-the-art spy plane fits well with South Korea's missile defense system called the kill chain, which is designed to detect impending missile attacks and launch preemptive strikes. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
We move on to the latest coming in on the search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. New data from a French satellite shows potential debris from the missing jetliner in the southern Indian Ocean. France's foreign ministry released a statement saying radar echoes had picked up several objects about 2,300 kilometers from Perth. The crew of a Chinese plane searching for the missing plane has also reported spotting suspicious objects in roughly the same area. In another possible clue, a source close to the investigation has told CNN that before disappearing from radar on March 8th, the plane dropped to an altitude as low as 12,000 feet after making a sharp turn over the South China Sea. The source said the maneuver seemed to be intentional. Korea is the world's second-largest semiconductor supplier after outpacing Japan's market share for the first time last year. Citing America's market research firm IHS Technology, the nation's global market share in the semiconductor industry rose 1.5 percentage points year over year to top 16% in 2013. The United States retained the #1 position, dominating more than half of the world's market share. Japan's dropped nearly 4 percentage points to settle at less than 14%. However, industry analysts say Korea's semiconductor market still relies too heavily on memory chips. They say Korea should focus more on enhancing logic chip technology, which is used to control electronic devices. Black market transactions of gold are thought to deprive the Korean government of an estimated $278 million in taxes each year. As part of efforts to bring the underground economy to the surface, Korea has opened its first ever gold exchange market. Our Kim Ji-yeon has more.
Korea's first ever gold exchange market opened its trading doors to the public on Monday. It offers a place for dealers and private investors to make gold transactions. 1 gram units of gold bullion of 99.99% purity are bought and sold in the exchange market. 8 securities firms and 49 futures trading companies have registered and participated in the trading. Investors can withdraw gold from the exchange in units of kilograms. The trading prices of gold are adjusted in real time, with 1 gram closing the first day at just over 46,000 Korean won, or $43.5 US. This is all part of the government's efforts to prevent tax evasion and the illegal trade of the precious metal. Individuals in Korea own an estimated 700 tons of gold, 7 times the amount held by the Bank of Korea. Nearly 70 tons is thought to be traded each year without being taxed. The Korea Exchange says transaction fees will be waived until March of next year to help the exchange platform take root.
It is expected to offer a stable and efficient trading environment for dealers and potential investors and boost the liquidity of gold within the next 2 years.
The market will be open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. weekdays. Gold can be withdrawn from 5 other Korea Exchange offices outside of the capital city of Seoul. Kim Jeong, Arirang News.
In the wake of massive data leaks in recent months, insurance companies here in Korea are coming up with ways to better compensate customers who have had their personal information compromised. Now, starting this week, it will be easier for some affected individuals to receive damages for losses. Kwon So-ah has the details.
Victims of financial fraud caused by hacking or phishing scams will be better compensated in the near future. 5 major insurance companies announced this Monday that they will introduce reforms to compensation measures so that their customers can receive compensation for damages more easily and more quickly. Hyundai Marine and Fire Insurance, Samsung Fire and Marine Insurance, and Dongbu Insurance will be some of the first to come out with the new insurance products this week. After assessing the move, smaller firms are expected to join in as well. Up until now, individuals have only been eligible to receive compensation when financial firms were found to be responsible for fraud or a leak. The change means they will be able to receive damages for losses even when it's not clear who is behind the breach of privacy. It comes as concerns are growing about personal data protection. Millions of Koreans have been affected by data leaks in recent months. Customers of KB Gungmin Card, NH Nongyap Card, and Rutte Card had personal information leaked, as did those who do business with Standard Chartered Bank Korea and Citibank Korea. As such, financial authorities plan to make those companies subscribe to the new insurance before others. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
A special exhibition opened on Monday in Central Seoul. It's to mark the 500th anniversary of the completion of one of the most influential political works in the world, The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. The National Library of Korea and the Italian Embassy in Korea are co-hosting the special exhibition to celebrate the 130th anniversary of diplomatic ties between Korea and Italy, which dates back to 1884. The exhibition features Machiavelli's original texts and letters, first editions of his work The Prince, and other items from the 15th and 16th century Italian Renaissance era, during which Machiavelli lived and worked as a diplomat and philosopher.
I would like them to feel what Renaissance is. Renaissance has been a great creation for mankind. It's a product of Italy. I'm very proud about it. So the capacity of creating the independence of man, it has been a great gift that we should cherish every day.
The exhibition continues through April 20th at the Digital Library of the National Library of Korea.
Well, it was another warm spring day here in the nation's capital. For a check on the weather forecast, let's go over to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle.
Good evening, guys. It was a nice day, but temperatures are about to drop and we are expecting rain in the central region and in the Gyeongsang-Bukdo province this evening.
Are we expecting tomorrow's temperatures to drop after the rain?
Not exactly, Daniel. The morning temperatures are expected to go up, putting the lows in the 10-degree range before rising up to 19 degrees. Now, it's going to get warmer as the week goes on. Now, going over to our temperature readings. It's mostly going to be gray over the nation tomorrow, with Seoul topping out at 9 degrees in the morning and getting up to 19 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will peak up to 19 and 17 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island can expect up to 17 degrees. Dokdo also makes it up to 17, and Mount Kumgang tops out at 11. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And that's our broadcast on this Monday evening. Thank you for watching. This has been Daniel Chen.
And I'm Moon Gon-young. Thank you as always for being here with us. For our viewers in Korea, have a wonderful rest of the evening and a great start of the day to those of you in other parts of the world. We hope to see you back here same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.